30 Odd Minutes is sponsored in part by Digital Dowsing. Who are you powered by?
For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard. We will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Hey! Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. It's great to have you here aboard the mothership where we are crossing time and space, moving really, really fast to talk about time slips in time. It's going to be an awesome discussion. Of course, I want to say hi to our crew. How are you, Matt and Andrew in the control center?
Doing fine, Jeff. How are you doing?
Doing good. Anything new this week?
I don't want to get into it.
Good talk. Leave them hanging. Matt, you?
I got a few irons in the fire that I'm not going to talk about just yet.
Oh my gosh, this is like
Mystery men.
This is like a paranormal conference where everybody's like, yeah, I got all kinds of things going on. I just can't tell you about it. Oh, it's lame. Totally lame. Sarah, how are you?
All right. I'm a little weirded out, though.
Why?
Because I swear we've done this show before. And all joking aside, I feel like we've already done the show. Like, we've done this topic. And yet here we are doing it. So, I don't know. Maybe I had my own time slip.
I think you did. Anything new?
Yeah, we got a new station. Yeah! They're called MCAT, which makes me think of that horrible test that pre-med students try to take. But it really stands for Missoula Community Access Television in Missoula, Montana.
Montana?
Yay,
Montana.
Big sky country.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Welcome, Montana.
Thank you.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
And we were written to by an Anthony Lower, who says, just saw your show for the first time on RCN cable here in the Philly area. Love it. And we got one from Bubba Beasley. Bubba Beasley. Love the show. You guys put on a great, entertaining, and funny show. Looking forward to getting caught up via iTunes. So just in case you guys didn't know, you can download each and every one of our missions from iTunes totally for free. Just search 30 Odd Minutes, and we're on there.
Yay.
Yeah, that's cool.
Super
All right.
cool. And I do not want to forget the people that keep gas in our tanks and beer in our fridge. So a big thanks to Brian Kerr and David Ferreira for the donations. Thanks, guys.
Thank
you.
Money. Woo.
Yay, thank you,
And beer.
guys.
And beer.
All right. Cool. Thank you, Sarah. We'll be back to you in a little bit. Sarah, of course, checking out the chat room at 30oddminutes.com. Did you know each and every week, if you're watching the live show on the stream, you can communicate with other oddballs from all over the world as they, too, tune in to the transmission from across space and time here aboard the mothership. All right, very good. Okay, so a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, Brett from Behold Designs turned us all into zombies, which was awesome, but he didn't want to rest there on his laurels. Check out what he did to us now. Look at this. Huh? Don't you love that? Ghosts, aliens, vampires, and Mog, half man, half dog.
That's right. John Candy lives.
That's right. Very cool. Thank you, Brett. We turned that into a sticker, and we got hundreds of them being shipped here to the mothership right now. FedEx can actually deliver to. It's complicated and very expensive, but we have stickers on the way. If you want one, we'll find out a way to get it to you because I think they're kind of fun. Thank you, Brett. You are awesome. You're a rock star. Okay, when we're talking about time, we need to get smart people on board, and that's why, of course, we have Dr. Dreck.
Greetings, oddballs. Dr. Dreck here. Today we're talking about time slips. So naturally, I thought, well, why can't I make a device where I can do time slips voluntarily? So I'm picking a random place to do time slip to. Here goes. Pirate ship. Avast there, me hearties. And all that stuff. And, let's watch out for Davy Doan's lockery. He left it open. Boy, this is dangerous. I have to get out of here. Where am I? What happened? I can't see. I can't. Oh, jeez. Maybe this isn't such a good idea to do it that way. Although I did become captain for a brief time. They called me, Captain blind bat, but I don't think that was complimentary. But maybe we better leave time slips alone for now. Signing off.
Thank you, Dr. Dreck.
More locks, they're everywhere.
They are, they get around. Okay, time is a slippery thing. Ask anyone who's enjoying themselves. It goes by way too fast. But what is time? Why do we think of it as a line always moving forward? Maybe we should call it what Einstein called it, time-space. That stuff all around us. And maybe what we call time is just part of the fabric that sometimes bumps into other time to the point where both sides of the equation catch a glimpse of something out of place. Tonight we're going to explore the concept of time slips. We'll see some compelling evidence and hear examples. Our first guest is here to tell us about his personal experience with the phenomenon. Please welcome, beaming to us live from Colorado, Eric Jones. How are you, sir? Hey, thanks for coming. Can you hear us?
Good to hear from you.
Yeah. All right, very good. So, Eric, set this up for us. This happened to you in Colorado, what, 2007?
No, actually, it was in August of 2009.
Okay.
My wife and I had just, closed on, not closed, but we did a walkthrough on our house, and we decided that everything was going well, and we just wanted to go out to dinner. And we decided from that point, we had saw some advertisement about a place up in the mountains there called Cook's Palace.
Okay.
The food they made there was all handmade. It was, it was a really nice restaurant inside, and the bar itself was actually from the existing building, and it was actually the way it was back in the early 1900s when I think it was originally constructed.
Yep.
So we decided we're just going to go there and enjoy some dinner, and that sort of thing. So we got out of the house, we took off, and we got up there, and I was looking around, and I thought, well, let's just go in the front entrance because I wanted to see what the bar actually looked like. I'd heard some rumors about it being, back from St. Louis and that sort of thing. So we went in, started to walk inside, and at about the moment I opened the door and let my wife go in ahead of me. And about the moment I just stepped in, I was looking down, kind of watching where I was walking, and all of a sudden everything just changed. The whole atmosphere inside was completely different than what I had momentarily had seen it before. The lights were a lot dimmer. I noticed the windows as I came in. I noticed the windows on the outside were kind of yellowish in color and stained a little bit. And I was looking up at the ceiling, and I saw these what appeared to be the old kerosene or oil lamps that come down off the ceiling, to fill them up, light them, and raise them back up, sort of thing. And I was kind of perplexed. I thought, what's going on here? But at the same time, I was thinking, this is kind of neat. I like this. And I looked at the bar, and the bar seemingly didn't change at all. I mean, as far as the actual physical appearance of the bar, it didn't change at all. The bartender was behind the like and everything. Everything was there except the stools weren't there, and that. And I looked around some more, and like I said, it was all smoky inside and all that. And the first thing that caught my attention was there's a gentleman standing at the bar, and I didn't think too much of it. I thought, well, this is kind of neat, but he had a kind of a straight brimmed hat on. I would say kind of like maybe a Mexican straight brim thing like this around his head with a short top, and it was black. And I also noticed that he had a handlebar type mustache,
right?
And it was very heavy and black also. And he was smoking one of those, I guess you call it hand-rolled cigars, but it was a small one, kind of like those Crooks or something like that you would. I think you purchased them somewhere here. But anyway, he was smoking one of those. He had a drink sitting on the bar. It was about half full, maybe a shot or a half a shot or something like that in there. And he had his left leg was left leg was perched on the bar rail down below there, and he had it looked like. Didn't quite look like cowboy boots. It looked like roper boots in a way. And I thought, well, this is just kind of interesting because the roper boots have a shorter heel.
Right.
And that he did have spurs coming out the back, but they were short, stubby spurs on the back. And I looked at his pants, and they were also black. I couldn't tell you if they were cotton or if they were leather or whatever they were. He also had a short jacket on that only went down to his waist. And he also had looks like a white shirt with no collar. And he also had a vest on.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't recollect if he had one of those little bow ties or anything like that up on top. But I also noticed that he was carrying a pistol on his right hip there. And it wasn't down like anything you might suspect a gunslinger to have or anything like that. It was up the waist high. And the only thing I could recollect out of that was that it looked very much like a Walker, a black powder pistol with the cylinder to be removed and load, separately from the gun, and then you'd put the cylinder back in. It had probably maybe a 10-inch barrel or something like that on it that I could tell, because the holster was long also. And he was sitting there just puffing away a little bit on his cigar, and he was looking out the window. And suddenly he looked over at me, and I knew he was looking at me. And he looked at me, and he nodded a little bit, and he looked back, but he was still looking out the window. And I thought, this is something I had never experienced before in my life. I thought, am I daydreaming or what? But I thought, how can I be daydreaming if he's recognizing that I'm there? So I'm sitting there trying to figure this out. And then I went a little bit further, and I looked down behind him, and there's another gentleman, a little bit heavier set, but not quite as tall as he was. And he had a brown vest on, and he had bright brown cotton pants. He had a white shirt on, and his sleeves were rolled up to about the middle of his forearms. And he was also carrying a pistol, but it looked like a really short-barreled pistol, maybe 5 or 6 inches or something like that.
Right.
I couldn't tell if it was black powder or not. But he had one of those, I guess, your Teddy Roosevelt hats that was with a V split in the middle, and it was angled toward the forehead and that sort of thing. He had one of those hats kind of on. And I looked at him, and he seemed to have regular shoes on.
Right.
And because I couldn't see anything that looked like boots. His pants were also a little bit baggy, as was his shirt was a little bit baggy. And then I looked on further down the bar, and I could see a number of people standing against the bar. They're all men in this bar. They all had, most of them had guns. Some of them didn't have guns. And I looked further down, and I could sit there and see guys playing poker.
Right.
And people watched them playing poker and all this stuff. And I'm looking at all this, and I said, what's going on here? It just caught me by surprise. And then as suddenly as all this happened and everything, I thought, then it stopped. And next thing I knew, my wife was back in front of me, and we're walking in through the bar and heading toward the back on the other side there where the restaurant was. And I'm sitting there all this time, I'm thinking, what had just happened?
Yeah.
Because it seemed like the description that I've given, it would seem like it would go on for minutes in time like that, but it didn't. I probably took maybe 2, maybe 3 steps at the most.
Right.
And I could recollect and see all this in detail. And so I got into the bar or restaurant, and we sat down, and that's when I asked my wife for a piece of paper, and I said, I've got to write this down. Right. I explained to her what had happened, and I started writing these notes as quick as I could because I didn't want to forget anything. And I knew I would probably look at those when I got back home here to, fill in some of that information on there. So I just kept writing what I could find. Now, I've lost a couple of pages, but this is the one page that I think that stood out. It had pretty much everything I could remember in it. But it was just, I had to write it down. I even told the owners I thought the bar was haunted.
Yeah. Now that's amazing. Now what's so interesting is that this experience, which as you said, lasted seconds, but very descriptive, and suddenly you're from the old time into the modern time. Now, what I think makes this different than a ghost experience is when you see something that's out of place in our time. So a woman in Victorian dress floats through, but everything else is modern. In this case, the whole scene changed. You were the ghost, if anything, right? I mean, that's really something. And have you ever had an experience like that since?
Never have. I keep hoping I can, because I tell you what, I would sit there and I keep a notebook.
Yeah.
Just for those shining moments when something like that might happen again. So
right.
It's just something that I'd love to experience again. I wasn't afraid. It didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing in the scene at all that was threatening whatsoever. And I just think what I did is for that moment, something happened and I slipped back into that period of time. It was early 1900s, I'm guessing,
right
at that time. So I just slipped back to that time period for a few seconds, and I got a glimpse of what was really going on at that bar at that period of time. I couldn't give you a date, but the only thing I could think of, it was in the afternoon, and it was probably probably the same time, late afternoon, something like that.
Very cool. Eric, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We've got a lot more to get to. Really appreciate you coming here and talking about this. I mean, there's not much more to say. This is an experience. You're not alone, and we appreciate hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate being on your show.
All right. Take care. Matt, Andrew, what do you guys think? Does this sound familiar when you hear an experience like this?
Yeah.
Definitely.
I've heard of 2 time slip stories, but my favorite came from my mom. My mom used to run a travel business where she took guided tours over to Europe, and she had taken a bunch of ladies to Switzerland. And after arriving at the beautiful hotel where they were staying, they got out onto a patio area that overlooked this beautiful scenery, and my mom sat down at the table, and they were all just getting comfortable and relaxed after a long journey. And she said, like a blink of an eye, she found herself back in Rhode Island, standing in our driveway. But only it looked like about 1955, 56 when they first built the house. Everything was the way it was back in the late 50s in our neighborhood. And she's looking at the car that she and my dad had at the time. And she looks over into our neighbor's yard, and there's their old car. And the neighbor, who she hadn't seen in many, many, many years, because he moved out shortly after they built their house, he comes walking out of the house dressed in 50s style clothing, looks over at my mother and says, "Hi, Allie," gets in his car, starts it up and starts to back out of the driveway. And then like a blink of an eye, just like Eric was describing, she's back in Switzerland.
Right.
Absolutely terrified. And she's looking at all the ladies on her tour, and no one's looking at her strange. Nobody seems to be reacting to it. And she didn't tell me that story for many, many years, but she's convinced that she had this, not only an out-of-body experience in this time slip, the other odd thing, the punchline to the story was when she got home from that trip, within a couple of days, she got a phone call from that man's wife. He had passed away when that experience had happened to her.
Wow.
So not only was it a time slip, but it was an out-of-body experience and also communication with an old friend she hadn't seen in many, many years.
Very cool. Very interesting stuff. All right, guys, we're going to talk a little bit more about time slips and maybe the how and why behind it right after the news. Take a look.
A man named George Edwards has released a photograph that he believes proves the existence of the Loch Ness Monster. Edwards has been hunting the elusive Scottish creature for the last 26 years, and it would seem his persistence finally paid off on the morning of November 2nd, 2011, when he spotted a dark gray hump in the water from the deck of his boat, Nessie Hunter 4.
What happened to the other 3?
Good question. He estimated he was approximately half a mile away when he saw the creature's back break the surface of the lake. Edwards said he watched the object for 5 to 10 minutes before it slowly sank beneath the water. Interestingly enough, it was moving in the direction of Urquhart Castle, where many people over the years have reported seeing Nessie. Unfortunately, a sonar sweep of the area detected nothing. However, Edwards feels that his picture is proof enough of his encounter, especially after sending it to colleagues in the United States for full detailed analysis. Apparently, the picture was looked at by specialists in the U.S. military who determined that the object in question was an animate object in the water. This photo also puts a damper on the theory that Nessie is nothing more than a large sturgeon, since this hump lacks a serrated spine. Chalk went up for cryptozoology. In other news, the famous UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico has gained yet another controversial chapter, as a retired Air Force officer has stepped forward with a claim that 2 flying saucers crashed in the desert in 1947. Lieutenant Colonel Richard French said he was told about the crash disc by an officer who was stationed at the White Sands Proving Grounds in New Mexico. The unidentified source told French that the first craft was shot down by an experimental aircraft which was armed with an energy weapon that disrupted the craft's ability to fly. The second saucer supposedly crashed while making an attempt to rescue the alien crew from the first crash site. What makes this story even more interesting is that Lieutenant Colonel French said he took part in Project Blue Book and openly admits that his job was to discredit all UFO sightings reported to the United States Air Force. French also claims he once thumbed through a file containing pictures of parts recovered from the wrecks that had strange markings on them, which reminded him of Arabic writing. Will this story ever end? Don't think so. And finally, we at 30 Odd Minutes would like to congratulate everyone at NASA for their incredible achievement in successfully landing their 1-ton robotic rover Curiosity on the planet Mars. We would also like to say we're sorry if you were embarrassed by the first image it sent back to Earth. I'm Andrew Lake, and oddly enough, that was the news.
All right, we're back. We're talking about time slips. Thank you, Andrew, for the news. Okay, so that was Eric Jones told us an experience about slipping into the past momentarily and then coming back. But it's also happening to people in the future. Check out this gentleman, Hakan Nordvist from Sweden. And this is an experience that he claims happened August 30th, 2006 in Kalmar, Sweden, in his home. He says he came home, found his water puddling by his sink, said, oh man, I got to deal with this, opens it up, gets ready to go see what he can do about the leak, and he said there was some kind of tunnel that he started crawling through. And he came out on the other side, and he found himself greeted by his future self, decades into the future. Now, it sounds like just a fanciful story, except the difference is he had his cellular phone with him, and he popped it open, and he took this video. Take a look. This is something that he had posted, and he says this is himself in the year 2042 when he was 72 years old. Looks like an older, heavier version, and then look at the matching tattoos to prove that this actually happened. Interesting, right? So he still claims that many people have called him a fraud, and we can't promise you that this is any kind of smoking gun, but it's a time slip into the future. Now, how is this happening? Albert Einstein, of course, told us about the theory of relativity, E equals mc squared. His best description of how to simply understand it is, put your hand on a hot stove for a minute and it feels like an hour. Spend an hour with a pretty girl and it feels like a minute. That is relativity. So I think he gave us the formula right here to build a time machine. Just put a bunch of pretty girls into a machine and time, of course, will... No? Not so much?
Where did you get that photo?
So much. Photoshop.
I'm willing to help you try.
Right. Thank you, Matt. We're going to fill the mothership with pretty girls. Okay, Sarah, talk to us about human perception, and especially related to time. Do you think that there's something mental here, or is this something in the physical world?
Oh my God, how much time do we have?
Go,
to
quick.
Talk about this. Well, I'm going to talk about the work of David Eagleman because he's like a brilliant genius. But no, more importantly, he is currently doing a project on time perception and how the brain... basically, he sees time as a construction of the brain, and so it's as apt to illusion as like our sense of color and auditory. One of the examples that he uses is because time is so tightly linked with memory, the way we're going to perceive it is different. So let's say you're in a dire situation. It activates this walnut-sized part of your brain, the amygdala, which makes all of your brain like kind of activate because it's like survival mode. So say in a car crash, if you've ever been in one, which I have, time seriously seems to slow down. Like you can see everything coming to the point where you're like, I could have avoided it if only I'd done this. Now, did time really slow down? Probably not, right? The person seeing the car accident from a viewer's point of view, like from outside of it, would say, no, it happened like this quick. But for you, because the memories are being laid down in a different way and all of your brain is kind of compounding upon that, it almost makes that time seem to draw out. And he uses that same argument for when you're getting more information in, it's like a higher density of information that's coming in. High-depth memory.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it stick more, and so you have a more rich memory of things, which makes that time seem to draw out more as well. So when you're a child, time seems to kind of just be endless. Those summers that you spend seem to be so, like they never end, and it's because the information you're taking in is so rich in depth compared to when you start to get older and time seems to speed up. And so that's one of my favorite examples, and he has an ongoing experiment which is really fascinating to me. But it begs the question, like how much of time is actually constructed by our brain?
Absolutely.
And I think that it is, to be honest. Like we actually have the power to change that, because perception is all any of us have. That is our reality.
Right.
So.
Very cool. Sarah, thank you. No, it's true. Physicists talk about two factors that affect clicking and clacking. 2 factors that affect time, right? Speed and gravity. But there's the third, consciousness, which is what Sarah's talking about, our human perception. Are we the ones making order out of the chaos? Is time happening all at once? And it's our brains that put it into some kind of logical order to make sense of it. And if so, maybe that explains how some of us are slipping backward and forward in time. Now, earlier today on Twitter, we had asked this important question. It's our tweet. Ah, nice. If you could go back in time for only a few seconds, what would you want to see? And you responded, Tim Martin, the UFO crashing at Roswell. That was not the mothership, for the record. That wasn't us. Anne-Marie said, I would like to see who committed the murders at the Lizzie Borden house. Yes, that would be, it was Lizzie. Come on. Shelby said, to see how I took my profile picture. Now, that's just the total waste of incredible moment, right? You can go back in time and you're going to just, okay. Sean said, the last conversation between Generals Lee and Stonewall Jackson. Very good. That's historical. We like it. Megan Blanchard, the Big Bang for show. I imagine it would have just been pretty bright. And then, yeah, pretty loud, bright, and then you're back. And then Danny, thank you so much. She said she would see how fat she really looks in these jeans. That's another great use of time travel. Thank you so much, all of you, for following us on Twitter at 30-odd minutes. We appreciate all the great feedback. We have a lot of fun with you guys. Okay, Matt, Andrew, how do you think this is happening? Do you think it's possible that we're haunting them, they're haunting us? Is this a collision of time periods, or do you think this is really ghosts that are still lingering all this time? What do you think's happening?
Why can't it be all of the above?
Okay, well, that's definitive.
No, I'm just saying, why can't it be a little bit of each? Each thing will have its own hallmarks. You know, when you're going back in time, your perception is like what Sarah's saying, you're perceiving this. The person, if this is what's happening back in time, is seeing you. They're seeing a time traveler come back. We're seeing ghosts. Is that the person that is from the past that's echoing forward? Like I said, it could be a mixture of all of the above.
It's so intriguing. I've been really fascinated, obsessed with time travel lately. And one thought I had is, could this explain almost everything paranormal? Could Bigfoot sightings be a creature that once walked the earth and we're seeing it again because those time periods are bumping into each other? Could aliens and UFOs be a future time period that we're bumping into? Could an alien be what we're going to look like in a million years? Possibly. Could that explain the ghost experiences? Even EVP. You hear someone say, get out, the common EVP everyone talks about. Could that be... imagine if you're standing there and you feel like your house is being haunted. How many times has a paranormal investigator said to the living people, tell it to get out, tell it this is your house? What if those ghosts are paranormal investigators with audio recorders and you're saying, get out, and they're going back to their paranormal groups with their matching shirts and saying, look, this EVP says get out. Who's haunting too? Andrew Lake, I ask you.
I think that's a very good point, Jeff. They got my head spinning a little bit on that one.
All right. Well, it's a great topic, and it's so interesting that, we shouldn't necessarily think of time as this big, long, straight line and infinitely going through space. It's so much more. It is slippery. It's fast. It's slow. Fall asleep, and it zips by. Human perception affects it in such a big way, and yet... we're all stepping forward 1 second at a time. We know when we only have 30-odd minutes to talk about it. The clock's ticking, and then it's over. If we do a good job, the show seems like it was just a few seconds. If we're boring, it goes on forever, and you've already turned off, you people with short attention spans. But that's how it is. That's what we do each week, and we appreciate you joining us. Until next time, everyone, from us to you, stay odd. Yeah.